What's up, guys? This is the CJ Murray Podcast, an exploration of music philosophy from a Christian perspective. These are stories and insights to encourage and challenge our views of music, God, and who we are. Thanks for listening, and now, today's conversation. Megan, it's good to have you on the podcast.
It's good to be here.
I know. So I was going to start asking your story, but I think I'm going to start at a different place. You were just in Sound of Music.
I was.
And you sounded really excited to talk about that. So I figure, why not just start with that?
Okay.
It was like your latest big role on stage in a musical.
Mm-hmm.
And just like...
It's my biggest role ever.
Yeah. Like just talk through that story so people kind of get an introduction to you and who you are.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll go back to where like my connection personally with Sound of Music started.
Sure.
I mean, I grew up like a lot of people watching the movie with Julie Andrews and just like learning all the songs, and I've probably seen the movie more times than you can count. And I remember when I was 15 or so, I got to see it live in Atlanta with my mom. And I sat there and my face hurt by the end of the night because I just smiled the whole time. But I just remember sitting there thinking, whoa, like people do that and that's their job. That is so cool. And I was like, I want to do that one day. And Maria would be the role. Like, I want to play Maria one day. And I thought one day would be like 20 years down the road.
Sure.
But I started taking voice lessons. My grandparents were like, we want to help you, grow this talent and skill. So I started taking voice lessons, and that was super amazing and really grew my love for singing and music.
How old were you when you started?
Probably 15.
Okay.
Yeah. And I remember I wasn't very confident. Like, I always loved singing. I grew up singing, but I didn't have like the confidence to do it on stage. And I worked with one voice teacher, and then I moved to another one, and she really opened my world to just, hey, you've got this. And that's really the push I needed to go in that direction. And she made me fall in love with it. And I was like, I want to study this in college. So I was like, I'm going to take voice lessons. I'm going to grow my skills. And I got to college and I chose advertising.
Oh, so you started with advertising.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
I think I was like, I don't want to be a theater kid. And people be like, oh, she's just a weird theater kid. And so I was like, how can I be creative without being a theater kid? And I chose the artistic side of things. But I just didn't have peace. So my next semester was like, I'll do education and I'll do English and speech, so I can have the speech side of things.
So it was like the gateway drug.
Right.
Yeah.
I was kind of doing that because people would ask, oh, well, what do you want to do with performance? And I was like, perform. That's all I want to do.
Yeah.
But I couldn't come up with a plan for myself. And after the summer after my freshman year, I had prayed a lot. And I remember just being like, I have peace about studying performance. And I think I always have. I was just kind of too scared to do it. And my parents, for the first time ever, were like, why don't you just do it? And I was like...
So before them saying, why don't you just do it, what was really their push for you?
For them, it was, what's your plan?
Okay.
What's your plan? But I couldn't give them a solid plan except that I just love this and I want to do it.
It's a heavy question for young people.
It is. And I remember it stressing me out. My dad would be like, okay, so what do you want to do with that? And I was like, be on Broadway, I guess.
Yeah.
Which isn't altogether realistic. And so I think I scared myself out of it. So the questions might stop. And I remember them just being like, okay, like you do whatever you want to do. And if you have peace, then we have peace, and we'll support you in whatever you decide.
That's awesome.
And that was the coolest thing ever. And so I changed my major, and my sophomore year started straight into performance and music. And I had never been happier in a major because I loved what I was studying. And it was just this peace I hadn't felt yet. I wasn't miserable in the last majors, but I just knew I don't want to teach. I don't want to do art, so I don't know what I'm doing. So I felt complete peace then, and really through that, God opened a bunch of performing opportunities. And my senior year of college, they announced Sound of Music, and it felt unreal that they were even announcing that, because I thought that's something that I would never get the opportunity to even try out for
It
in
broke
college.
the cycle of musicals we normally do anyway.
Yes, because it wasn't just an operetta or an opera no one's heard of. It was like a pretty much like modern musical, which is crazy. I remember calling my mom and being like, yo, you have no idea that they had just announced that they're doing The Sound of Music.
Little did you know.
Little did I know. And I remember being like, I think I'm going to try out for Liesel. And my mom was like, just that, you know? And I was like, yeah, I just don't think that I would get Maria if I even tried. And my grandpa called me and he goes, so I heard that this is all happening, and I think that you've talked your whole life about playing Maria, and if you didn't at least try, I think you would regret it. And I was like, you know what? I think you're right.
So you went auditioning specifically for Maria?
Yes.
Okay.
I wrote Maria on my audition paper. Yes. Thank you for that. And my mom was like, are you crazy? Awesome. And I think it was just one of those moments of you just have to be confident and at least try, because you miss all the shots you don't take. And I auditioned and went through the whole like callback process, and I got the role, and that was the coolest day of my life.
Wow.
Up to date. Yeah.
Wow. And you know, that's what's interesting about music is, it's just a journey of building confidence. People that are really good at their craft, they had to build up to that. And that's what I'm so grateful for, loved ones that that know our limits, but also know when to push us and know when we're underselling ourselves. Because I feel like it's often very easy, whether intentional or not, to undersell the gift that we have. And even with entrepreneurs, you have a product and you kind of go cheaper, and then a pro comes in and says, no, like you're worth more than that. And if you need to survive in this craft, like you have to charge more than that. And so, man, I just think that's so cool that your family, well, your grandpa was like, no, you need to go for this.
He was like, ever since you were little, he said, you've talked about this, so I don't know why you wouldn't at least take the opportunity while it's there.
It's better to shoot high and fall lower than shoot lower and have a less chance of going high.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that he's right. I mean, having it all happened, I think I would have looked back and been like, why didn't I even try?
Yeah.
And would have kicked myself a little bit for that. So It was definitely a dream come true. And then the whole process of starting that year-long process of building that show was crazy, because we got right into it in the fall and started working on music, and that was a challenge in itself because I know the music like the back of my hand, but when you strip it down to just you and the music, it is so different.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, how's that?
Because, I mean, I'll sing along with Julie Andrews in my car, but when it's just me and the music, it's like, okay, this is a lot more
like karaoke.
Difficult. Yeah. And I think there was this level of pressure too, because you want to do it well because people know the story so well. And I was like, wow, I have big shoes to fill. Because people are going to come in with this expectation of what they know. Right. And I wanted it to be unique in itself, of like, this is my Maria. I didn't want it to be copy and paste, but there was a lot from Julie Andrews that I definitely pulled in. But I definitely wanted people to walk away with just a fresh take on The Sound of Music. Yeah. And so working with Dr. Mack and Dr. Bombard and everybody was incredible. And they also were just like a huge, huge help of, you got this. Don't stress yourself out, because I think sometimes I would put all the pressure on myself. No one else was putting pressure on me but me. Sure. And then building the character of Maria too was something, and making
it consistent.
Right.
What's so interesting about Maria is, the whole show, and I mean, you could go on about this, I'm sure, but like, you start out the show as, I'm in not a nunnery.
Like an abbey.
An abbey.
Yes.
What?
Kind of, sort of.
Yeah. And then you're introduced to the kids, and then it's like this character transition from like an unknowing, floating type character finding your place to like a mom, and just the dynamic shift between the kids. And I'm just curious, like, how did you broach that when it came to like practicing the singing. Like, do you think that there was a style shift throughout the show? Mm-hmm. Like, how would you say?
I do. I remember talking about this in rehearsals because there is such a growth in Maria from beginning of the show to end. And she has to grow up. She kind of has no choice. And I had placed her very close to my own age at like 20, 21 years old. And she's so young in the beginning. And so there's just this childlike sound to her and just carefreeness about her.
Yeah.
And I would say that the real shift happens probably when she and Captain kind of come to the realization that they're in love, because that in itself is like a character growth because she's never been in love before. And when they come back from their honeymoon and she's singing with Liesel and it's the 16 going on 17 reprise, that was probably the biggest difference vocally that I made. That big shift of, okay, now I can't be the child anymore because my child needs me. And so I have to be the motherly figure. And I remember them talking about, we need more maturity to your voice from this point on because you are now mom. You're not just Maria, the young carefree girl. You have a lot more responsibility to carry. And I had never thought about doing that. And they made a really good point when they talked about that. And it was interesting to work and be like, okay, how can I make her sound older, not just in the acting, but in the singing?
So how did you do that?
Well, I would say that, I mean, I don't have this super mature sounding voice altogether. I sound very young. But I would say vocally I'm pretty mature, but with growing her into like the motherly figure, it was just a little bit more depth there than before. Because when I'm singing Favorite Things with Mother Abbess, it's very light and airy. And up to that point, it's pretty light. And I would say there's just a different heaviness to the singing from that moment on.
Like just giving the notes more weight. Like you're not just gliding across, but you're really just soaking it in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. So a year-long process. How would you say you grew as a musician?
Oh, wow. Well, I grew in stamina significantly.
Really?
Yes, because from the first rehearsal, because we worked music straight up, and it was just like going to choir in a sense, because I would go, I would sing the songs, I would sing with the kids, and in that process, I don't think I focused on the theatrical side of it as much as just getting this music right.
Sure.
So that when the theatrical side comes, the music is not the issue.
Yeah.
And so I would say, man, well, I got to work with Dr. Ray Gibbs for the first time during Sound of Music, which was crazy. And from my first lesson with him, I felt like I grew 10 times significantly. It was just insane, the knowledge that he has. And I think I did grow vocally a lot.
Sure.
But I think whether I grew vocally or not, I grew in just knowledge of my voice and understanding what's going on more so. And I had to, because I was running around doing all the choreography during this whole process. The first rehearsal
Very
where
active play.
got on stage and actually worked choreography, I looked at them and I said... I was like, I don't know how I'm supposed to do this.
The cardio.
Yeah. And I was really worried for myself because I said, okay, I've never had to run around and sing at the same time.
It's like, so we have 2 more months of this, right?
Right.
like not 2 days, not 2 hours, 2 months.
Right. And I remember I had to learn so much about my like physical self in singing to do that, and how to run across the stage with what we like to call ballet feet, so that I'm not like prohibiting breath when I'm running, or just different things like that to gain just the support to sing while running up a flight of stairs or running down the flight of stairs or jumping off and on a bed. Like that was insane. But I would say I would do my choreography and my practice to help, but one day it just clicked and it wasn't hard anymore. But I guess when you do something for months and months, it builds on itself. But I don't know, I grew, and even that process of having to learn how to manage my voice differently, my voice grew, which is crazy because you're doing things correctly.
Yeah.
In a sense, where you never had to think to do them correctly before.
Man, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we move on from Sound of Music, like, if this was your last, like, you had any final thoughts about Sound of Music that you just, if you left the podcast, you're like, oh man, I really wish I'd brought that up. Like, what would you, oh man, yeah, like, what would you say overall from the experience to like younger version of you? Like, if you could speak back to that 15-year-old that just would have loved to, like, what would be your letter?
I think, like, what would I say to myself?
Yeah.
In a sense? Oh, wow. I think I would tell myself to not give up on your dreams and your ambitions, even though some people might tell you they're kind of crazy, or you probably won't be able to do much with that in the future. To just kind of rely on what you feel like God is calling you to. Because I remember scaring myself out of it because I was like, people don't think there's any career in this or any, future in this. And so I guess they're right. But I couldn't get over the feeling of like, but this is just what I love. It's my passion. And I can't just dismiss it. So I would just look at myself and say, keep pushing on no matter what. And just really like follow your dreams. Because God gives us dreams for a reason. And I truly believe that. And I'm glad that I never gave up. And I had a voice teacher that at one point in teaching me was just like, I just don't think you have any like more growth. I don't think you can go any further. And as like a 15-year-old, that hurts. It's like, oh, wow. But I'm glad that even then I didn't just take that as, okay, well, I guess I'm just done singing. Because I wouldn't be where I am today. I don't know if I would have studied music in college. But God sent a new vocal coach into my life that really just set me on the path for success through just mere confidence. And so I would just tell anybody, really, if you are passionate about something, pursue that, because I don't think your passion comes from nothing.
Man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And you know what's interesting about that is like the sentiment of chase your dreams. To a lot of people, it would almost sound cliche because it just seems like it's a cultural, it almost feels like a cultural given at this point, like just the majority of people would either say like, oh yeah, like that's a nice, like, yeah, chase your dreams. But like, it's so nuanced when the rubber meets the road of what it takes. And it really does take, as someone said earlier today, like courage. It takes courage to go, oh no, it was last night I was talking with someone. In fact, I was talking with an artist last night, a professional fine artist, Jeffrey Bass, who painted President Bush, and then also has a painting in like a CIA gallery, and then in the National. Anyways, I could go on, but he brought out the point on chasing your dreams that it takes courage, like over a long lengths of time, regardless of how other people feel about it. It takes courage to keep going because God is something down the road, and you look back, just like you said, and be like, wow, like God was totally in that. And on another point that you said, if I could speak to maybe another group of people, like I went to college for accounting, and my dad said, hey, you should get a skill just as a fallback, the plan B. And I was just listening to some reels today that were harping on, if you're going to do it, don't have a plan B, because then you have to go forward. Well, I did the plan B, and I didn't have a piece about switching. I just, I kind of felt miserable, and I prayed a lot, and God said, no, like, do the thing. And then after that, I kept going down the business route, And after my MBA, I just like, God, I don't have a peace about anything else. So I'm going to keep doing it. But at this point, I know you want me to do music. You take care of it. And that's when God brought tons of opportunities down the line. And I also met Megan because of all that. So definitely a win. But I think on either side of the coin, it takes courage for someone to, number one, find what God is calling them to, which can take a lot of prayer. And then after that, it just takes a lot of times, like in your case, community. Because I think the people that love us are sometimes the best people to look into our lives and be like, hey, there's something here. Like, I can objectively look at your skill set. I can objectively look at you and tell you you're not crazy. Like, this can be a thing. And my piano teacher in high school, he was honest with me. He said, I think you can make it. If you go down this road, I really think you can make it, but it'll take 100% effort, not 99%, not 98%. The time commitment's insane. And I panicked. I tapped out. I'm like, I don't know if I can give 100. But God knows that. And God knows how to, just like, you're saying with your play, you're not where you need to be. And you hit the wall of like, wow, I'm not, this isn't coming together like I thought it would. Like, even you're doing the dream, you're doing the thing, and you're realizing I need to grow. And then by the time you get to the show, it's almost like an out-of-body experience. Like, you've worked so hard.
Yes.
You've worked, and like, it's so weird to think, because you almost have to put on autopilot because you've just rehearsed so much. Then now it's like, okay, muscle memory, you're going to do your thing. And I'm just sitting back right with you to be like, whoa, this is a neat experience.
Right. Talking about out-of-body experiences, it definitely was.
Yeah.
I remembered before I stepped out on stage, just hearing, you're backstage and I'm trying to get rid of the nerves that are literally shaking me to my core. And I've never been so nervous in my life. And I remember hearing like all the people out there, and we sold out every show. So that's a solid couple thousand people sitting out there, and they're all here to see us, and I wasn't so nervous I was like gonna be sick or like cry, but I was just like, I can't get rid of the, like, my whole body is shaking. And then the guy walks out to pray and the whole audience hushes, and I looked at our stage crew guy and I was like, Davis, and he was like, you got this, kid. I was like, kid. Okay. And then I would get shoved in this like little corner of the room to wait for the nun's first song before I go out. And I was standing in there and I was like, trying to like warm up and be like, I'm good. And trying to get ready for this opening song. And then after, really the first song was like my get over your nerves type of song. And then I would go off stage and I'd be like, whoa, I just did that. That was so cool. And then for the rest of the show, it was like my brain didn't think in Megan. I was thinking in Maria. Like, it was just full on.
You're engaged in the storyline just as much as the audience.
Yes. And I think that's where you strive to get. Yeah. Because you don't want to be me trying to be Maria up there the whole time. It needs to be, no, like Maria just naturally is who I am, which is crazy. So that's crazy. And you were talking about like support system, and like my parents didn't necessarily never say like, you can't do theater. So I never took that as like them asking me those questions as, you can't do this. I think they were just, as parents should be, like
worried,
where are you going to go with this? What's your plan? Which is good. I'm thankful my dad asked that question. Dad, if you watch this, thank you. But when I finally came to the conclusion, my mom said it to me first. She said, you don't want to teach. And I was like, no, I don't. You're so right. She's like, then I don't know why you don't just study performance. And it was like,
duh. Yeah. Like,
but my family, they are my favorite people on this earth, and they are my biggest support system. My parents, my grandparents, my siblings. I feel like I have a fan club in them, and it's really, really neat to have people who are supporting you 100% in what you feel like God has called you to, because no one can tell you what God's called you to, but the fact that they all had peace about it and peace about me being here, and even me moving into my master's, like my grandparents having peace about that, my parents having peace, and me feeling peace, really just shows me, okay, I may not know what's coming next, but I know I'm where God has me right now. Yeah. And in that, there is such a neat, like, sense of contentment and just being like, okay, because I have no idea. I have ideas of what I'd like to do next, but I can't say what God has or what doors he's going to open. So it's neat.
Well, I think that's an awesome segue into the next few questions I have, just being support system. Take me to 30,000 foot, Megan. So go back to the beginning, because I know that you have a pretty cool testimony as far as adoption.
Mm-hmm.
And just walk me through from the beginning, like how God got you here from the beginning, and like how music kind of intertwined in and throughout that.
Oh, wow. So, yeah, a little bit about me. I'm adopted from Russia. And so I came, well, let me backtrack. My parents adopted me and all three of my siblings. We're all adopted from Russia.
Oh, wow.
We're not siblings by blood. We're just siblings through being adopted. But my parents have made 9 trips to Russia over the course of their lives. And
did they adopt more kids after you and your...
So they adopted my older brother.
Okay.
We were all really I turned 1 a month after. No, I had just turned 1 when I came to the States.
Okay.
So we were all super young. I don't think any of us were older than 1, maybe 2.
So they had 4 1-year-olds.
But we weren't all adopted all at once.
Okay.
So my brother is 2 years older than me, so they adopted him. 2 years later, they adopted me. And it's kind of like our age gaps are the times we were adopted. So my little brother's 4 years younger than me, and my little sister is 8 years younger than me. So we're all adopted from Russia, which is super, super cool, because it shows me, too, that, no one can look at me and say God doesn't have a plan for your life, because I would not be here if he didn't, I could genuinely be anywhere. And if he hadn't given me the family that he did, I think often oh, where could I be? Had I not been adopted, am I just somewhere in Russia, or had I been adopted by a family who maybe weren't Christians? What would my life look like? But God knew before anybody that my parents and a good godly family would adopt me. And I think that in itself speaks volumes. It's so, so neat, and shows me a bigger picture of adoption into the family of God when you get saved too.
Absolutely.
Because it's wow, God pieced our family together one by one by one. And that it's so cool to me. But so I came to the States. I don't speak a lick of Russian. People ask me that all the time. I'm the most American Russian you'll ever meet. But came to the States and just had the privilege to grow up in a really good godly home. My parents are really my biggest role models. My mom's my best friend, and I look up to her more than anybody in this world. And really, where music plays a part in my life, I have no idea where that came from. My dad is fairly musical.
Yeah.
He's not necessarily get on stage and perform type of guy, but he was always singing around the house, and he still to this day will make up songs. There are songs that exist that I thought he wrote, because he's pretty decent at making up things. And so I would probably say I got the kind of singing from him, because I would just sing around the house. And I was probably maybe 13 or so when I sang for the first time in church, a solo. And my mom sent that to me just the other day, and I was like, oh wow, I looked terrified. But I kind of I think it's just this God-given love for music that he kind of just put in me, because I've always had a song in my heart. I always have a song in my head. And I guess just really musicals is what really brought that to light in my own mind.
The music combined with stage.
Yeah, because I would be part of church plays when I was little, and I would play the little girl or something like that. But I never walked away I want to do that when I'm older. It wasn't until I saw a musical live that it just all clicked with me that, whoa, people do this.
Yeah. Well, in Sight and Sound, I mean, they have some really powerful plays, and I know we've talked about Sight and Sound before. Mm-hmm. I've seen Samson and Noah and Jesus, and the way that their portrayal of Jesus, it was interesting, just because you mentioned like the power of stage play, but like it really gave me a completely different view of Jesus as a person. And like, even aside from the series, The Chosen, and again, this is just speaking to the power of musical and play, but like, it just, like when someone's making a point, okay, like you can hear a sermon about Jesus leaving the 99 and going for the one. And the preacher can really work you up and be like, and you were that one. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. But like when you physically see not an actual demonically possessed man, but like you see the boat go through the storm and the disciples really, really doubting Jesus, like, why are we going through this? And then the demonic possessed man, and then Jesus being like, well, you were that one and now he's that one and we're going, and it just like wrecks you. It just like there's just something about a well-placed song that doesn't just pull at the heart and the emotions, but it really asks you fundamental questions about like you. And even like even when this would have been like 12 years ago, I saw Cinderella on Broadway, and the quality is so good.
Yes.
Like it's hard to believe these people do this every single night, because it's like you'd think it'd get old, but it looked so fresh. And but just the quality and really believing I'm looking at real characters coming to life. Like I don't know. I'm just curious to hear your rant on all that.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Well, I think that you're so right, because speech is so powerful, and we know that our words carry so much weight. And I was a speech major, and so I understand the power that words can have. But there really is something about music that connects with people on a different level. And you can say one thing and then sing it in a song, and maybe one person's really touched by the words and another person's going to be really touched by the song. I am a touched by the song type of person. And I think you're so right. Like, Sight and Sound does an incredible job. I've seen 5 of their productions and many more just watching them online.
Yeah.
But you're so right when you like, I sit there and they could do anything and I'm just crying. And I think what's so neat about, because I love Broadway, and I used to be like, I want to be on Broadway. And but the older I got, and just like growing in my walk with Christ and getting to know like who I am as like a follower of Christ and a Christian, is like, I don't necessarily think that the setting of Broadway is a good place for a Christian to be, generally. It's really rough.
It's a culture that, I mean, like do you know Zachary Levi? He played on Chuck, Shazam.
Yes.
And he was on Broadway for a short time.
He was, and She Loves Me.
Yes. Yeah, yep. And he talked about his time on Broadway and just the culture of like, oh yeah, you'd all finish at the same time. Usually a lot of people go out for a drink, and I'd go out for a drink, and you kind of get wasted, you oversleep the next day, you kind of have a meal, do something, and you show back up to Broadway and you kind of hit repeat. And it was like, that sounds miserable. Like, I mean it might, you have the community and of course that, but I don't know. And the other thing too is, my wife Megan and I, at one point like a year or two ago, we were like, how much do people make on Broadway? And not as much as you'd think. Like, it seems to me like you almost get paid just enough to survive in New York.
Yeah.
Like, get a really small apartment, pay the bills, have some food, and perform, and like that's your life. That's it.
Yeah. It's pretty insane. And the culture is a whole thing. And I just feel like, me personally, some people may be able to do it, but me personally, I was like, as a Christian, I would be very much in the minority of the culture of Broadway. And I just would have a really hard time having to compromise anything that I believe or stand for, like my convictions, for a role in a show. And I always say, like, I would never want to be in something that I couldn't invite my family to come watch, or that I wouldn't feel like comfortable inviting my family to come watch. Whether that's language, because that's a big deal in theater everywhere you go. And then it was probably around the time that I started really finding this love for theater that we went to Sight and Sound. And I had never heard of Sight and Sound before. And that was like the most eye-opening experience for me, because I was like, oh my goodness, this is like Broadway level work. And in some ways, like, better than Broadway in my mind, with their production level and what they're able to do. But it's also a ministry in itself, because people who maybe never heard the Bible come to see the show, and the Bible is brought to life before their very eyes. And that is insane to me, that they're able to do that and do it so well.
They do very tasteful creative liberty, and you really have to. I like, what sticks out in my mind is when we saw Samson, the way they really, have you seen Samson? Yeah, like their take on Delilah.
Yes.
Where Delilah, when you read it in the Bible, really you just assume she's a horrible person. You just assume she's a horrible person. But they ask the questions like, well, but why did he fall for her? Because what if he didn't fall for her because she was horrible? But like, what if they actually were a good match? Like, what if they actually were a good match? And, you know, she couldn't cut his hair because she actually did feel guilty, because she couldn't bring herself to. And then yeah, the Bible says they gave her the reward, but the Bible never says what she did with it.
Right.
And in the play, they're like, okay, but if we follow this line of thought, she'd be devastated. And now he's not the only tragedy, but you now feel her tragedy. And she has a song in there that I listened to on repeat for a good while, because it was just so heartfelt. Like, you really felt, and not just that, but like on a deeper level, how many times have we sold out our faith for God in a really small way? You know, where like we were the backstabber, whether intentionally or unintentionally. And of course, like the main theme, like, and his hair grew back, you know, God's grace always comes back. And yeah, like it really, really does come to life. And to what you said about the difference between Sight and Sound and Broadway, I feel like Sight and Sound has a much bigger stage and ergonomically, because Broadway, like, at downtown New York, they really like what I think a lot of people don't realize is when they think of Broadway, I think they have a bigger picture in their mind. But really, when you go to a show, you'd be surprised how compressed
the theaters, because they don't have the space to build wide. They have to build up. And so the theaters are tall, and the seats are like this close together, and the stage is not as big as in your head I think people think it is.
Nope. It's incredible what they do with such small space.
It is. It's incredible. And I don't ever want to like be like, Broadway's just not it, because they do an amazing job, and there's a reason that Broadway is such a big deal. But Sight and Sound with their like 360 like wraparound stage, because for like the first half of the show, you don't see what's going, and then the curtains just rise, and then you're surrounded by the world.
You're in the world now, yeah.
And they're coming down the aisles. They're real animals. Like, they just do something that you don't see anywhere else. Yeah. And it is just incredible, and I'm just blown away every time I go. But to me, it's so appealing too, because as a Christian, I can do that, and I can share God's love with people through that. Because what I love about performing is that it's a way to just like share with an audience a story, and to make them feel something that's so real and so raw. And Sight and Sound does that so well. Yeah. It's so, because I tell people who don't know about Sight and Sound, and I always want to be like, it's a Christian theater company that does musicals, and it sounds so cheesy.
I know.
It sounds so cheesy.
But they don't have any idea. Like,
no, and so I want to like pull up trailers and be like, but you just don't understand how cool it is. Yeah. Because it does. It sounds cheesy on the base level of, oh, it's a Christian theater company and they do musicals.
But it's literally
about the
Christian
Bible.
Broadway.
It's incredible. Yeah. And the talent that they have could be anywhere.
I mean, what I've always found fascinating is, you know, if you go to a Sight and Sound and you don't, well, if you go to a Sight and Sound play and you look at the program, they don't give the names of the actors or actresses. Like they really, it's almost like a specific show of this isn't for fame. Like we're all entirely invested in the message and the story. We don't want you knowing who these people are. Just like accept the character for what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And they don't even do a curtain call. There's no bowing because it's just not about them. And that is so unheard of and so cool that they do that. And I don't know, to be part of something like that would be the job of my dreams.
Yeah.
Truly.
I mean, you could just show this podcast episode and be like, hey, so here's the buildup of my experience. I was
Here's
Maria on Sight
plug.
and Sound. Sound and music.
Same thing.
You know, it's this, like, here's my story. Here's, just like link in bio.
Right.
Man.
Well, it's neat because God has given me the opportunity to make some connections with them over the years. And they got to come for our career fair that we had recently. And
Really?
I just got to pick apart their brain and ask all the questions. I stood there for maybe 30 minutes and she was so patient and so kind and just really gave me the rundown of what it would look like. If I were to audition, if I were to get called, what it would look like, what my turnaround would look like. And it was really, really good to hear that. But also to make a connection with somebody straight from the source.
Yeah, 100%.
She was like, I'm going to take down your name. And if you ever come up, like, I hope we remember you. And I was like, okay, that's so cool.
I hope we remember you,
And then we had another like workshop type of, I guess it wasn't really a workshop, but a husband and wife who the wife was a grad of here and they were in town and they got invited to come speak to the speech and music kids. And they just shared about their experience working as actors in Sight and Sound. And now they help with like auditioning. And so it was really cool because I stayed after and picked their brains about everything.
That's awesome.
And just to get to network a little bit within who I'm meeting.
It's all about who you know.
Yeah. And get numbers and all these things. And hey, would you be willing to do like audition prep? And they're like, yeah, that'd be cool. So it's neat that God's given opportunities to meet people that have done it.
Yeah.
That way it's not just unheard of or people you never talk to.
I had a business teacher and what he would tell us all the time. He just said it over and over again. He said, guys, this is one of the most important things I can nail into your head. No matter where you work or what job you interview for, no job ever hires someone because they're qualified. They hire them because they can trust them. They always hire the most trustworthy, not the most qualified. Because if you can trust them, you can teach them up to where you want them to be. And it may be the most qualified, but trust a lot of times built through connections.
Right.
It's when someone can, and there's another statistic too. I think there's a statistic where 50% of jobs have the positions filled before they ever reach a job opening on the internet. Because they're always filled through, well, who do we know in our network that might be a good fit? Or I listened to a podcast episode. It was Colin and Samir interviewing Matt Pat from Film Theory, Game Theory. I don't know if that rings a bell. But anyways, huge YouTube channel, like I think over 60 million collective subscribers. And they were talking about how they hire. And they said, yeah, like when we hire, like we don't post it. We go to other channels and we kind of see, oh, like who do we connect with? Who do we network with? And yeah, and that's just something that's always ongoing, like you never know, you never know when you're going to meet the person that's like the no so-and-so, the no so-and-so. Right. And like, as long as you're yourself and you're working hard, and just consistent. But yeah. Yeah.
And she made that super clear of just, we want to know who you are as a person. And basically was just like, you work on growing who you are and your craft and come to us with the skill set that you have. And we take it from there basically,
Yeah.
And yeah, don't don't slack on like the written part of the application process too.
Oh, yeah.
Of like, yes, we want to see your talent and we want to see your skills, but the questions that we ask, we're looking for really good answers too, not just, oh, this and that, whatever. And it was good to hear that. I think anybody should, be knowledgeable in that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, for sure. And plus, I mean, especially in an age of AI, I think it's important that they know that it's really you. Oh, my word.
Be like, ChatGPT, write me a good answer for this question.
I actually, believe it or not, I filled something out a few weeks ago, and I typed it all out myself. I was like, oh, what if I gave it to AI and said, oh, improve on it. Like if you had to take everything I said but make it better, what would you do? And so it kind of fed me back the same thing but way reorganized. And so instead of using that as my new template, I kept what I had and just edited from there. Because companies and institutions, like, they have software that can know if it's AI or not, or like it'll tell. And so I'm always scared of that. It's like, no,
yeah,
no. But
like what you get is just straight from me, and you will know.
You will know. So you graduate in a year. Okay, and so from there you just kind of feeling it out as it goes.
Yeah, I mean, right now, I would say that pretty much through college, the goal has been, hey, what can I do to help myself get ready to maybe do something like Sight and Sound?
Sure.
How can I grow those skills? And that's really what led me to do my master's, because I graduated I didn't graduate and then decide to do my master's, but I was getting close to graduating, and we had gone to New York to work with Heather Sorensen.
That's right.
And she shared a lot about just her journey in professional music. And she's like, you've got to be really solid on this. You've got to be solid in this master's degree. And then I'm like, okay, interesting. And then I'm just thinking through shows I've been to, and you just see, they got their BA here, they got their MA here. And I'm like, oh, master's degree. Oh,
and it's something you got to do right away.
Right. And I had never been like, I'll never do my master's degree. I kind of thought I was done with school after 4 years. I was like, I don't want to do any more school. But I don't know. I really look up to Heather Sorensen. I'm not a composer. I don't write music. I'm not the greatest in music theory. But I do have a passion for just like, the professional side of things. Yeah. And it really, made me think. And then all my teachers came to me and were like, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? I was like, why are all of you asking me that? And so I finally just gave in and went and talked to, Dr. Bombard. And she was like, I don't think there's any harm in you. In fact, I think it's a great idea for you to grow your skills as much as you can, as much as available to you, And I was scared. I was like, I'm not very good at music theory. And she's like, you'll get through it. You'll be fine. And I was like, okay.
Just gotta do it.
And she just said, don't make that the reason you don't come. Because I want the training, the vocal training. But her saying, don't make that the reason you don't come was really like the selling point. I said, oh, okay. She has faith in me. So surely I can have faith in myself that I can do this. Because when I put my mind to something and decide I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it. Yeah. So then I showed up and I was like, I'm a grad student. That's crazy. I never thought I'd be here. But I'm glad I'm here. And I'm learning so much more than I ever thought that I would be learning. Not just in voice lessons, but just about music in general. And I think that she's so right. Why not take the opportunity while it's right here to grow your skills to the best point you can get them to out of school? And she was like, in the road you want to take, I don't think it could hurt you at all. And I was like, you're so right. No. So yeah. Yeah.
And it's, especially with the graduate assistantship where they basically pay for it. It's just like, unless, and I said this to my brother, my younger brother, he was considering, well, he wasn't considering masters, but he also didn't have he wasn't going to climb up some chain somewhere. And so I said, dude, if you're not going to go out there right now and just crush it down a specific path, stall with the masters. Like, just, it's paid for. Once you have it, you have it. And you'll never regret having it. My dad is a master's of divinity, and he was applying for a computer programming job, and they gave him the job just because the guy next to him didn't have a master's. It didn't even matter.
Right.
It wasn't in computers. It was just, he had proved that he had stuck out that much more education. Once you have it, you have it.
Right. And
So-
there are moments where I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing?
Yeah,
But I just have to tell myself, you will be so glad you did it.
absolutely.
And it can only do you that much better in the future,
sure.
because it's true. Not everybody does get their master's.
And you did Maria as undergrad, right?
I did.
As undergrad.
My senior
so,
year.
I mean, you know, if you could do that as undergrad and now you're just building on top of that, you know, sky's the limit.
Right.
Well, Megan, it was so good to have you on this podcast.
It
I
was
really
great to
enjoyed
be
this
here.
conversation.
Me too.
Thank you guys for listening. I really appreciate it. And I will see you on the next episode.